Live from WXOU at Oakland University, it's the GioMoShow. Now, give it up for your host, GioMoShow.
Welcome, everybody, to another edition of the GioMoShow interviews right here from WXOU Sports. My name is GioMoShow. I'm the host of the GioMoShow, and the GioMoShow is your home for all Oakland sports and beyond from WXOU. Be sure to rate, review, and subscribe. Support the podcast all the ways that you can, as well as our beautiful radio stations. So today, the guest that we have here today, sitting to my side here, awkwardly waiting for me to finish the intro. We have an interview that is long overdue. Associate head coach of the Golden Grizzlies, Jeff Smith. How you doing, Smitty?
I'm doing great, and really appreciate you taking the time to have me on your show. It means a lot to me. It really does.
Yeah, and it's great to see you here. We're here in the arena. As you can see here, the old picture of Campy right behind Smitty over here. And just a heads up, the lights will be shutting off at some point. So just a heads up for all of you watching, at least on YouTube. For those on Spotify, it doesn't matter. So, Coach, what I always like to do with my interviews, I like to start them the same way. I need to know the foundation of you in the world of sports. Going way back in time, what were your sports kind of growing up, and how did it ultimately lead to basketball?
Well, I grew up in an era where, it was very different than what it is today. Today, my wife and I, we have two daughters, and they are, at a very young age, became very specialized. They are volleyball players, and since the age of 10, they pretty much, that's all they've done is volleyball. Where when I grew up, you played everything, and you went from season to season, and even as I got into high school, I played 3 sports all through high school. Basketball was always the sport that I was most passionate about, and always had the dream of being able to have the opportunity to play collegiately. I wanted to be a college basketball player, but I played football, played basketball, and I played baseball all through high school. And at that time, that's just what you did. Especially, I was at a small high school, Class C high school, and we played multiple sports, and we did it for one another. It was the guys who were athletes all played sports for each other, and then when it was your turn to go support the other guys, you just did it. And I would always work on my game as a basketball player throughout the course of the year. Football practice would get done, and I'd have dinner and then go back to the gym and get my workout in, and go in the morning and get up shots before school, and then just when basketball season was in play, then did the same thing. And was fortunate enough to have the opportunity. I went and played at Alma College, and I played for a couple of years. And unfortunately, and I wasn't a great player, and I wasn't ever probably going to be a great player, but I had a couple of knee injuries that ended the experience as a collegiate player, and that's what led me into my coaching career. I started coaching while I was in college, and really just fell in love with it. And here we are, 30 years later, after I graduated from school. 30 years as a college basketball coach, and when I say it out loud, it's very surreal. It's hard to believe that I'm starting my 31st season in college basketball, and it's been an absolute dream come true. There have been so many highs, there have been plenty of lows, lots and lots of learning experiences as I've gone through it, and so many things and so many friendships, so many relationships, and but overall just so many great memories, and I'm thankful to have had the opportunity that I've had.
And for you in your coaching career, you had a lot of stops along the way. Just to kind of look through some of your the places that you've been. You mentioned Alma College, where you played and coached the JV team.
Yeah.
And then you went to Albion College as an assistant coach. Central Michigan as a grad and then assistant coach. Oakland as an assistant and then associate head coach. Then you went out west to Utah, where you guys won the Mountain West, got a 5th seed in the tournament as well. UC Riverside, back to Central Michigan, and back to Oakland. So you've been many places, which kind of contrasts what Campy has done, being here for now 40 years. So for you, in all your travels and all the different places you've been, what have you picked up along the way to bring back here for Oakland for your second tenure here?
I think that one of the things that has been so great for me is that I've worked for some tremendous head basketball coaches, and I've worked with some amazing guys who were assistant coaches, some of whom now are head coaches. And, I look around at some of the guys that I've worked with during the course of my career. And when I left here, I went out and I worked at the University of Utah for Jim Boylan, who now is with the Indiana Pacers and running their defense. And Jim, to this day, I tell people, he is without question the greatest basketball guy that I have ever been around. I mean, he he's got 3 world championship rings. He worked for Rudy Tomjanovich for 11 years with the Rockets and won 2 championships there. He won a championship with the Spurs with Popovich, and and then he worked for Coach Izzo at Michigan State. He and Coach Izzo were assistants together for Judd Heathcote. So he's worked for some great minds. He's worked with some great minds. He was an unbelievable influence on me as a basketball coach and as a person. He's to this day one of my dearest, closest friends. And we had an amazing 4 years. Things didn't work out for us at the end, but that's this profession, especially when you get to the highest level. The pressure and the time that you're allowed is very, very short. And fortunately, we did. And still to this day, if you walk into that building, we were the last staff to ever win a championship at the University of Utah. And so, in our time there, I got engaged, I got married, and we had both of our children in Salt Lake City. And so a lot of great memories at the University of Utah. Coached some amazing guys, and had a great run there. But I learned so much about myself. I learned so much basketball, but really what it gave me the opportunity to do was really grow and branch out as a recruiter. When I was here, my entire career, my entire recruiting base was basically in the state of Michigan. And we had done a phenomenal job here. We were getting some of the best high school players in the state of Michigan, and we were getting some tremendous transfers, guys who were coming back from the highest levels. And, if you look back on those teams, the Keith Benson, Jonathan Jones teams, we had recruited all those guys before I left. And so many of them I had recruited those guys so hard, and they'd gone other places, and then Saudi and those guys brought them back, and so we were recruiting the state of Michigan so hard. And then when I went out west, Jim walked into my office and he said, "I want you to recruit Texas." I'd never recruited Texas a day in my life, and jumped in, and we were very fortunate. We got some good players from the state of Texas, and I started recruiting in the upper Northwest and really started recruiting nationally, and that really changed my career because it broadened my horizons and it forced me to get outside of my comfort zone. And so when I came back to the state of Michigan and I went to Central Michigan to work for Keno Davis, it really gave me the opportunity to dig back in the state of Michigan, but at the same time continue to recruit nationally. And in today's day and age where the talent pool, the number of players, it's not as great as it once was in this state. We're still able to get players from the state of Michigan, but now what we found is we have to be able to recruit outside the state of Michigan. And I truly believe that my experience recruiting out west has really helped us here now this time around at Oakland.
And when you're making all those trips, going through the recruiting process, and something that you mentioned that you had to build as part of your skill set, like I've never been recruiting nor have been recruited. Kind of like take us through your eyes, what you're doing when you travel out west, when you travel out to the Northeast. What are you doing essentially? Are you just watching practices?
Well, you've got to try to find you have your relationship, so you get an idea of a list of guys that you want to go try to see. And so as you prepare to go on those trips, you're trying to map out and try to get to as many places as you can. And so for when you go to see the junior colleges, for example, if we're going to go into the state of Kansas, you're going to go and you're going to hit 4 or 5 different places in the course of 2 days. And same thing when when I go out and you recruit in Idaho and Utah, and you're going to basically go from 1 or 2 places a day, and you're going to do it over the course of 3 or 4 days. And so you get on a plane, you fly in somewhere, you jump in the car, and then you're basically driving around from place to place to place for 2, 3, 4 days. Get on a plane, you come back here, you're here for practice for a couple of days, and then you jump back in the car, go to the airport, and fly back out again. But you're trying to get in, you're trying to identify players who fit what Coach Campy wants. We always talk about he really values shooting, he values rebounding, he values guys who have a tremendous elite work ethic, and guys who are great teammates. And so you try to do the best you can to identify those things early. And as we get back on the road here next month in September, that's what we do. And so, it's been a lot of years of doing it. And after all these years, I still love the recruiting aspect of it. I still love the chase of going after players. It certainly has changed with NIL and with the portal. But people ask me all the time, do you still love it? And I do. I love so much about what we do. I love being in the gym with the guys. I love being in the office with our staff. I've been so fortunate to work with so many great guys over the course of my career, and certainly since I've been back here, I've worked with some really, really good people, and we've had some turnover on our staff, and it's always a little bit strange when you walk in and there's new people in the office, and I really enjoyed the guys with whom I worked the first 5 years I was here, and now we've got some new people, and I'm excited to work with them, and that's what's great about this, is that you build relationships with people, and some of my best friends are guys who I've worked with over the last 30 years.
And now getting into the spot of your career, as I mentioned, kind of like going down the list here, you mentioned coming back to Oakland. I'm kind of curious, like back then when it was your first round here at Oakland, I mean, I guess first of all, like, how did you get to Oakland the first time? Kind of how'd you end up here?
It's really strange because, in this profession, it's not often that people get hired when you don't know the head coach, and I didn't know Coach Campy, and I was young. I was 30 years old. I had been coaching at Central Michigan, and there was a position that opened here. And when I was at Central, I was the third assistant, and I did everything but recruit off campus. And they had just changed the rule where the third assistant was going to have the opportunity to go on the road and recruit off campus. But I didn't really feel as though I was going to have that opportunity at Central Michigan the way in which I really wanted to do it. And I was told through people who knew Coach Campy that he was looking for someone who could coach, spend time on the floor with the players, but also would be willing to get out. He had a guy on the staff who had been with him a long time who wasn't someone who really wanted to get out on the road and recruit. Coach's kids were young at that time, and so he really needed someone who was just willing to just get in the car and drive every day and go chase players all over the place. And so through some people that knew both of us, we connected, and we talked on the phone twice, and I drove down here, met with him, and at the end of the day, he told me that he felt good about it and that I'd be hearing from him in a few days and called and offered me the job. So I had no idea who he was when he hired me, I knew who he was, but I didn't know him other than that he was a great coach and had a really, really good program here, that it had just gone Division I and just had started to have success. And so I came here, and I was with him for 5 years, and I went from the third assistant to the second assistant to the associate head coach, and I think I was a big part of us taking this program from being very good to becoming great. And very thankful for my time, because he gave me so much freedom and so much autonomy, and by the end so much responsibility, that it really, really helped prepare me for my experience when I left to go out west.
And for that experience going out west, like in terms of both being in a good spot, getting to know Campy, but then also moving out west, kind of like what was that kind of decision like making? I'd imagine that's a difficult thing to do.
It was,
way out way.
It was, and now part of it was my relationship with Jim Boylan. I believed so much in Jim and who he was, to the opportunity to go to the highest level of college basketball. You just don't get those chances all of the time. And I was 35 years old, 34 years old, and I had been here for 5 years, and it was time to make a move. I felt as though I probably had done for Coach all I was going to be able to do, and that if I was going to leave, that was the time. And to go to a place like Utah that's historic in its basketball history, it really is a historic basketball place. And it's funny, I'd grown up in my early 20s, and as I started coaching, Utah was always on the midnight game, like you see Gonzaga now. Yeah. But back then it was Utah, and so I knew so much about Utah basketball because Coach Majerus had that thing rolling, and they always played the midnight game. And when I was at Central Michigan, this was before cell phones and laptops, so we worked, and our staff would be in the office until 11:30, 12 o'clock at night. So I'd get home, and the Utah game would be on, and so I watched it. So I knew a lot about Utah basketball, and so when Jim got the job and offered me a chance to go with him, it was a no-brainer. And it was a huge leap of faith for me and for my wife. But, what it was really good for us was that we went out there, and the two of us, as we began our marriage, we were on our own. And so we had to kind of figure some things out and rely upon one another. And thankfully, we were with really good people. The other guys on our staff were amazing. I worked with a guy named Stan Johnson, who's now the head coach at Loyola Marymount, a guy named Barrett Peary, who's at UNLV now as an assistant, but has been other places. Those two guys, we were the full-time assistants, and they're like brothers to me. And the other guys on the staff, John Dykema, who's now with the Detroit Lions and player personnel, and a couple of other guys who we all were so close, and we all were so tight and together. And then Coach Boylan was amazing. And so, it was a fun 4 years. Wish it would have ended differently for us. And then, after going through the experience of being fired for the first time, and thankfully the only time, and hopefully the only time in my career, learning what that was all about and going through that, and ended up being thrown a lifeline to go to UC Riverside with Coach Wooldridge. I worked for a guy named Jim Wooldridge, who had been, he was an assistant with the Chicago Bulls. He was the head coach at Kansas State, head coach at Texas State. He offered me a position with him at UC Riverside, and he and his wife Annie could not have been better to me, to my wife, to our kids. Marley was 2, and Stella was a newborn. I mean, Stella she lived in 3 states before she was a year old. But Coach Wooldridge and his wife were so good to us, and we went in, and again, same thing. The staff was incredible. We were only there for 1 year, and it wasn't because of anything other than I had the opportunity for us to come back home to the state of Michigan and to go back to Central Michigan. And Central Michigan, ultimately, if you said where is home, that area is my home. That's where I grew up, and my parents went to school at Central Michigan. I grew up going to games at Central Michigan, going to camp at Central Michigan. Some of my closest friends in life live in Mount Pleasant, and so when Keno got the job and called and asked me if I would come back to CMU, it was a no-brainer for us. And so I loved our time in California. I'll forever be thankful to Coach Wooldridge and to his family for what they did for us. But it was a great opportunity to come back to the state of Michigan, and we had 7 wonderful years in Mount Pleasant. We completely flipped that thing. It had been in a tough spot. We took over, and we started 4 freshmen our first year. The second year, we started 4 sophomores and a freshman. And in the third year, we had won 21 games in 2 years. And the third year, we won 24 games. Won the MAC, and we lost in the conference tournament championship game to Buffalo. And then lost in the NIT. And then the next year, had a chance. We almost won the MAC again. And then we had the thing rolling pretty good. And then after 7 years, Coach Campy called me and asked me if I'd be interested in coming back with him. And we just made the decision that for me to come back and help him get this thing back to where it should be and where he wanted it to be and where it was. I just looked at that as a really, really great challenge and a great opportunity, and here we are. It took us 5 years. We were so close a couple of different times and got derailed a little bit by injury, but that's basketball. I think we were so close the year when Jamal was here. So close the year when Jalen was a senior, and unfortunately those injuries just nipped us right at the end. And then to be able to do what we did last year, what do you say? I mean, it's just truly historic. And so I came back here to do that with Coach Campy, to do that for Coach Campy, and I'm really glad that I did it. Our family is very, very happy, and my wife and our daughters are in a great, great place where we live, and their journey now has been fun, and I'm happy to be a part of that too.
And for now, the continuing journey, kind of coming off of that, that historic season last year, defeating Kentucky. Everybody knows the story here. So, I don't want to focus too much on last season because now it's this season. Yeah. Because now we move on to next season. So for you guys as the coaching staff, most of you guys, have retained the coaching staff. A new addition has been made as well. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But how do you move on from a season like that with such a new roster? Because there's a lot of players that were on that last year's team that either graduated graduated or through the transfer portal are no longer with Oakland. So how do you move on with such a new group like that?
Well, it's the new era of college basketball now, right? Where you're just going to have 8, 9, or 10 guys on your roster that weren't there a year ago. And so, what you do is you go through the spring and you just realize that, what's done is done, and good, bad, or indifferent. And for us, it was beyond good. It was great, but you get your guys together, and really, it's no different than what it's always been. You have to flip the page and know that you're not trying to defend anything. You're not trying to repeat anything. This is a brand new team and a brand new season. And the approach has to be that. We have to know that we are starting fresh. We are starting with a brand new team.
Yeah, excuse the reason for the lighting and all this stuff is women's basketball is having their photo shoot today, so we'll work around it, Smitty.
No problem. I mean, I tell you, we just got to be ready to pivot. But, at the end of the day, you have to know that each year you start over. You talk about this is a new beginning, a new team. Nothing. You can't put pressure on these guys because of what was done in the past. These guys need to understand this is their journey. This is their season. This is their team. And we can't ever compare DQ Cole to Blake Lampman or Isaiah Jones to Trey Townsend, just like we couldn't compare Trey Townsend to Jamal Cain. This is this team. This is Team 58. And so as we move forward, we just go about our business as we go about our business, one day at a time, 1 week at a time, one game at a time as we go. We always talk about clearing hurdles. We're going to play one game at a time as we go and just keep clearing hurdles. And we're going to take some positive steps. We're going to take some negative steps. But all we need to do is keep moving forward.
And for that, is it ever kind of like a battle, whether with you yourself, the coaches, or the players to kind of like, you have to kind of reel it back, like, whoa, this isn't last year. Like, is that kind of a constant battle to kind of reel it back?
I think I used to not be very good at that in my career, especially coming off of years where we had success. I think I used to put way too much pressure on myself, and would never want to speak for anyone else, but I know for me, that used to be something where I'd feel like we gotta do better. We gotta repeat. Where now I just look at it as this is a new season. All I can do is control what I can control. I need to keep my side of the street clean. I need to take care of my business and do my job. And I know that the group of guys that we have, after being around them now for the last 5.5 weeks, they're awesome. Now, does that mean we're going to win 20-some games or we're going to win the league or whatever? I have no idea. But I do know, based on what we've done for 5 weeks, we're going to enjoy being around them every day. What I do know is we've seen really, really positive leadership, especially from DQ Cole and Isaiah Jones. And what we saw in the past was when we had that kind of leadership, we've had success. And so we need to just continue to build upon that and know that this year's team is this year's team. And there will be bumps in the road. There will be things that go poorly, but that's okay. And what we need to do is just learn and grow every day. And for me, I'm not going to do anything other than just coach these guys every day. And whatever happens, happens. And we got to keep getting better and better every day. And when we do take a step backwards, we got to pick it up, and the next day try to take a step forward.
And now I wanted to kind of pivot to the team that the team now, starting with the returning players. Specifically, you mentioned DQ Cole and Isaiah Jones, but Baru, Cooper Craig, Xavier Banks, a few of those returning players. How are they doing so far? Trying to include the new guys in the group. How are they growing as players, both in skill and you mentioned leadership? How are the returning guys doing so far?
They've been tremendous, especially from the leadership aspect and the inclusion aspect. I mean, they have done a phenomenal job right from the first day when everybody moved in. We bring everybody back at the end of June, right as our team camp starts, and all of our guys work the team camp, and then we have open gyms, and then we start our workouts, and they have been together. They have been very connected. You see them, and it's different guys who are together, different groups who are together, but as a group, they are connected. And we've seen it on the floor, and we've seen it off the floor. And we've done a few things as a group away from basketball, and you see the camaraderie. And it's not false, it's not fake. I've been around teams where you're like, you see it and you know it's not real. These guys, it's genuine, and it comes from Isaiah and DQ and Coop and Baru, especially those guys on the floor. it's funny when you watch and know that a year ago they were the guys that struggled with the zone. They couldn't figure it out, and now they're the ones that are showing these guys how to do it and talking them through it, and not afraid to jump in and stop practice to show them something. And those are really positive signs. And I think a lot of that does, not to talk about last year, but it does go back to last year. Blake was so good at that, and Blake was such a great example of what leadership should look like. And now DQ and Isaiah are doing those types of things, and that's where I think you start to see what your tradition and your cultures are, and I think that Blake Lampman established that, and now DQ and Isaiah are continuing that, and Baru is right there with them, and Cooper's right there with them, and to see those guys doing that is really encouraging, and to see these guys getting together and spending time with each other away from it, really, really positive signs. And I used to talk with Neil all the time on our pregame radio show just about you're always looking for signs as a coach. And right now we've got a lot of positive signs. And again, that doesn't mean we're going to win the Horizon League and win the tournament and beat Kentucky. But what it means is that we're trending in the right direction to be where we want to be. And, does that mean it's going to win us games? Not necessarily, but it's going to certainly help. And if we can continue to see those positive signs, we know we're going the right way.
And I want to ask specifically about Baru, because he was always, for me, I heard the rumors of he jumped so high that he went through the ceiling and stuff, touched the clouds and brought him back. But he had a cut short offseason coming into last year. But now that he's had time from the beginning of summer, how's he doing so far, understanding the zone and kind of being one of those returning guys in that sense? How's he doing?
He's been great. He's, especially on the defensive side of it, he's really, really grasping that zone. And you're right, he got his preseason got cut short through no fault of his, and then by the time he got back, it was pretty tough to crack that lineup with the guys who were playing in front of him. And I give him credit, when he did get his opportunities last year, he did a really good job. And so, he went into the offseason knowing that this was really important for him. And the thing that's been encouraging about Baru this summer is just hearing through the grapevine that he's in the gym spending extra time, hearing from our strength coach about how much effort he's giving in the weight room, and then watching and seeing what he's doing on the floor. He's putting himself in position to have a very, very good year for us, and we need that. He's a guy that we're counting on. We need Baru to rebound. We need Baru to score. We need Baru to lead by example when he's out there in that zone. And because if DQ, Baru, and Isaiah can all take huge steps forward for us, that will be very, very encouraging, because some of the new guys are coming along, but those three guys, and then Cooper Craigs, who hasn't played yet for us but has been here, if those four guys who have been in this program, who are on scholarship, who understand what we're doing, can impact us and take a step forward, and then the new guys come along, we're going to have a chance.
And a quick note on Cooper Craigs. I was looking through the roster because I thought only Isaiah, DQ, and Baru were the most senior on the team. But Cooper has been here the longest out of everyone on the roster, despite unfortunately not being able to play much. Yeah. So for him, kind of, I hate to say the background, how has he been doing? Does he take a bit of a leadership role? Despite all that he's been through, what's his deal? What's his story so far?
Well, he came here and we redshirted him because he wasn't physically, like his body wasn't ready. He wasn't ready like most freshmen. In today's day and age, it's hard as an 18-year-old kid because you're playing against guys who are 23, 24. Right now you want to get old and stay old. Yeah. So Cooper really is a third-year freshman. And last year was just snake bit by injury. He was going to play. He was going to be in the rotation. And, unfortunately for him, he got hurt. And then by the time he got back and was healthy, we thought, okay, maybe we're going to be able to get him into the rotation, and then takes another injury. And so hopefully we're going to be able to get him 4 years. That's the goal. But at least we know we got him for 3. And he's been through so much as far as practice and game preparation. He understands the zone. And the thing about Coop is he's got the ability to score the basketball, especially around the basket as a post player. And so even though he's a little bit undersized as a post player, he's got a great ability to score the ball, and he's really skilled, and he's not afraid of contact. And I love Coop, and I think we've got a really good front court with Coop and Baru, and then the two new guys that we brought in, Alan Makiba and Dang Majak. And those guys, they've had a really good summer together, and I'm excited. I'm very excited about that group of guys.
Yeah, and I'm excited about them too. And I want to hear a little bit more about the new guys coming in. Is it, like we mentioned before, a very new roster, a lot of younger guys coming in from all over, from within the Horizon League, from Division II, from JUCO. You guys got them from everywhere. So kind of tell me about like this new class coming in. What do they add to the team, and kind of how does the team kind of not change, but like, what's the different spin with this new class coming in?
Well, we knew we wanted to make sure we added shooting back into the lineup, and I think we did that with, like as you said, within the Horizon League. Jason Woodrich, who for our Oakland fans, they'll be familiar with.
Yeah.
With Jason, I mean, he was a guy who was, he was an Oakland killer at times. He came from Cleveland State.
Yeah, he loves shooting in this gym.
He's a big, strong, smart, tough basketball player who's got the ability to just go off as a shooter. And the thing, and Coach always said about it, like, he's a winner. And he was in Indianapolis for 4 straight years with Cleveland State. He knows what it takes to win, and he knows what it takes to win in this league. And he is a great young man. I mean, I really, really love being around him. He's very mature. He's very responsible as a person, and he's fit right into our group. And then Malcolm Christie, who is another sniper who comes to us from Eastern Canada. He played at a university in Canada called Dalhousie and was, without question, the best shooter in Canada. And those two guys, they each have 1 year left with us. They will add shooting at a high level for us. And I'm not going to sit here and say that they're Jack Golke, but they play very similar to Jack Golke. And people, I think, sometimes forget. I mean, Jack Golke was not the Jack Golke of the end of the year all the way through the year. It took him some time to develop into that role and get that comfort level and that confidence coming from Division II and figuring his way out. And so I think these two guys, now Woodrich has been through it. It might take Malcolm a little time to adjust to what we're doing and to the speed of this level, but those two guys can really make shots. On the interior, adding Alan Makimba, who is a very big, strong, physical presence. He's got 1 year left as well, comes to us from UMKC. About 250-pound post player, and he is a physical, bruising, get to the basket and score, throw his body into you, just fearless when it comes to contact. And then we signed Dang Majak, who comes to us from Indian River State College, which is a junior college in Florida. Dang is from London, Ontario. He grew up in South Sudan. His brother had moved from South Sudan to London, Ontario. Dang came over to London when he was maybe 15 or 16 years old, went to London Basketball Academy, and then went to junior college, and then he's about 6'10", long, athletic, shot blocking, rebounding. He's had a tremendous summer. He's leading us in rebounding through our practices this summer. Bouncy, competitive guy, can score around the basket. Those 4 guys as veterans, really, really excited. 2 other junior college guys are the twins, who we signed from Western Oklahoma, Chang and Jack Hoth, who over the last 2 years, Chang led all of junior college basketball and made threes, and Jack was in the top 4 or 5. They also led the junior college in threes taken. They shot a lot of threes, and both of them are really, really smart, skilled, offensive-minded basketball players, and their biggest challenge right now is just getting the physical strength to be ready to play. But they're smart, they're skilled, they don't lack toughness, they just lack strength right now. So they're working hard in the weight room. So we got those, and then Jalen Jones, who's Isaiah's little brother, played at Tennessee State last year as a freshman, who is a point guard who I think will impact us. He's very fast, he's very good with the basketball in his hands, can make shots, and I think will kind of become that ball hawk in the zone where he'll be able to steal the ball and then really dictate and generate pace. And so we're really excited about those guys, coming in and being able to impact us. We've got 3 freshmen who are in the program. Warren Marshall from Brother Rice done a great job this summer with us, and then Nassim Mahmoud from Dearborn and then Luke Gilo from Gaylord, who both came to us as walk-ons and have really impressed us this summer. I think they're both going to have an opportunity to have a role within our program during the course of their career. So, am I missing anybody?
This is not an exhaustive list, but I think you covered most everybody.
I think I got most of the people there, and it's crazy, when you think about it, there's so many guys, and you start going through it, and it's like it's crazy now what we've got to deal with the number of new players that you bring in, but really excited about the roster. They've gelled together really well during the course of the summer, and excited. We've got one more week with them on the floor for our summer workouts, and then they've got a couple weeks off, and then we come back and we'll hit the ground running again right after Labor Day, and off we go. So
yeah, I can't wait for it. I'm excited for it.
Yeah, really excited.
And I'm curious, for all the new guys coming in, how long is the phase of hey you? Like, how long does that last before you really start to like get to know everybody at least by first name?
Yeah, it's strange, because you're starting to it's really hard, I think, for like a guy like Trey, our new assistant. He's trying to learn names, and he's the first day he was here on the job, we were on the practice floor, and so he's out there just trying to learn names. He's trying to figure out where he is. He's trying to figure out the zone, and but for the players, it takes some time, but. It's basketball, and that's the one good thing about it is basketball is basketball, and the guys are so comfortable doing it. But I think it kind of helps ease their mind and ease them. I think for the coaches sometimes it's a little different. Trying to figure out who everybody is and what they can do and where they're going to fit. And coach is so good at figuring out what to do. But for him, it's like you got a whole bunch of new players out there, so now he's got to watch them. Even though you might watch them through the recruiting process, once they get out on the floor together, it's like, okay, all right, what are we going to run here? Like, what are we going to do? Who's going to play? How am I going to get him shots? And so he's great at that, but I think he's really taken this summer to really watch and evaluate. We've really concentrated on the zone more than we have the offense, and I think we know with this team we're going to really have to defend and rebound. We've got the personnel to do that. And then offensively, he's great at figuring out what he wants to do and how he wants to get shots. And I think we've got the ability to score the ball. We've got the ability to make shots. And so it's just putting it all together. And we've got it feels like it's going to go quick, but we've got a lot of time to do that.
No doubt. Now, talk to me a little bit about the new addition to the coaching staff, Trey McDonald coming in for Michael Covington, who went now to Jacksonville. Kind of what's Trey, or what does he add to the new coaching staff? What does he bring as like a new face?
Well, I think that what he brings is a completely new perspective because he's never been here. Trey was a very good player. He went to Ohio State, played on a team that went to the Final Four, and played for Thad Matta, who was a tremendous basketball coach. And then after he was done with his playing career, came back to the state of Michigan. He grew up in Battle Creek, played at Battle Creek Central, and then he was a high school coach in Kalamazoo and wanted to get into college coaching. And there aren't a lot of former players, especially as they get into their late 20s, who, when people say you should go be a GA, who are willing to go be a GA. And a lot of people are like, well, you're gonna have to like wash, do laundry, and you're gonna have to wipe up the floor, and you have to rebound.
You're gonna shove a lot of stuff.
Yeah, you're gonna do a lot of dirty work, and he was like, that's fine. So he went to Virginia Tech, and he worked for Coach Mike Young, who is one of the best X&O guys in the business, and is just a wonderful human being. And he was with Coach Young for the last 2 years. And when we went through the search, and we interviewed a lot of different guys for the position, and ended up offering the job to Trey, and he took it. And what he brings is a fresh perspective. And one of the things that was really interesting when we interviewed him and we talked to him and asked him about what are some of his good qualities, and one of the things he said was, I've never done this at this level. I don't have any bad habits. And I said, yeah, that's a good point. He's got a clean slate, and he's got a strong desire to learn. He's got a ton of energy. He loves being around the players. He's down in the weight room when they're lifting, he'll lift. Like, he works out with them, he'll run with them. He's a high energy guy on the floor. He's got a strong desire to learn. He wants to grow, and he wants to spend time with our players. And having a new perspective, Cov was awesome. Cov obviously played here.
Yeah.
He's from Pontiac. Knew everything about Oakland basketball. is from this area. You know, the Covington family is Pontiac basketball, and so losing him was a tremendous blow. But we feel very fortunate that Trey will do a great job of stepping in and filling in that gap, and he'll help us grow as well. So we're excited about Trey.
And someone else who's stepping into an assistant coaching job is our very own Blake Lampman.
Yeah.
Tom Izzo added him to the coaching staff. And I recall in the postgame press conference, you know, us at WXOU were there. That was brought up by both Campy and Izzo, and it was great to see that actually come through. So, you know, what does Blake add to Izzo's staff, and what is Izzo thinking?
Well, he fits the Michigan State blueprint. You know, he's tough-minded. He's a grinder. He's a guy that you know, nothing's going to hold him down, and he will jump right in and fit into that staff. You know, obviously Sadi's there now. John Borovich, who's on that staff, who I coached when he was at Central Michigan as a player, and then was here on staff when I was here the first time. So, I mean, there's a lot of ties between Michigan State and Oakland, and you know, Blake's mindset and Blake's approach to basketball fits right in at Michigan State, and I'm so happy for him. He's in his hometown. He's coaching at the school that he grew up being a fan of, and other than the fact that one day a year I'll be rooting against him as we go head to head with him, I couldn't be happier for him, because I'm not sure I've ever been around anybody who is more special than that guy, and so thankful that I had the opportunity to not just coach him for 4 years but 5, and I'll forever be grateful for what he did for our program, not just last year but through the course of his career. He's a special guy. He was a very, very good player, but he is an even better human being, and I wish him nothing but the best, that's for sure.
And we do as well. So, Coach Smitty, I got one more question for you, and this one was brought up way back last April of 23. It was my very first interview here on the GioMoShow. I had Kevin Beers come onto the show, give his story, you know, through radio in Central Michigan and teaching, and he credits you and told us a story about how you were the one, perhaps through your times at Central Michigan, that got him to the arena, to now where he's going into his 20th season as being the voice of the arena. So tell me that story. How did you meet Kevin, and how did you bring him here to Oakland? So, and thank you for that, by the way.
Yeah, no, it's worked out great for everybody. So Kevin Beers and I started working. We met working at Michigan's basketball camp in 1991, and became friends through working camp. And when I went to Central Michigan as an assistant, I was in charge of running the camps, and Beersy would work camp for us, and we got to be really close friends. And he was a student at Central, going back, finishing up his teaching certificate. And before that, I don't know, you know, he had a radio show in Gaylord, and it was called Beers in the Morning, which was fitting and perfect for him, right?
Was a 50s and 60s rock.
Yeah,
rock
it was great. Yeah, he was. So he did that. So, you know, he had the voice for it. He always had so much great interest in doing that, and so we became really close. And then he ended up coming down here and got involved with the Waterford schools. And when I came here to be an assistant, we reconnected and got to be really close friends. Matter of fact, I am the godfather to his second son, Gage.
No kidding.
And he is the godfather to Marley, our oldest daughter. So, you know, we were very close. And so we needed somebody to do the game. And I said, hey, I know somebody that I think would be really good. And he came and did it, and that was how it started.
All he needed was one shot.
Yeah, and here we are 20 years later, and, you know, he started doing it for us, and then, you know, he was doing it for the WNBA team when they were still here in Detroit, and filled in for the Pistons from some different times. And so Beersy's great. I mean, I don't think you're going to find a family that loves Oakland basketball any more than the Beers family does. And, you know, we've had a couple of those boys that have been managers for us, and hopefully there's a couple more coming down the pipe that are going to be OU students and be a part of our program. But no, Kevin, he's a special guy, and what he does for our program and what he does in this arena, I mean, I think it's fantastic. It's amazing how many other staffs in our league absolutely hate him. I mean, it's everywhere I go. They're like, man, that guy at the table. I just hate that guy, and it's great. I mean, I think we have such an amazing home court atmosphere here, and such an home court advantage in large part because of our students, but in large part because of the job that our marketing staff does, what Kevin does, the overall collective effort of the people that put on our game day environment. It's incredible. And it's fun coming in here every day on game day, because especially once we get into January and February, that it's going to be electric. And, obviously when you're winning, that helps because the building's full, but our people do such a great job, and there's always such good energy in here. And with what Kevin does with that on that microphone, man, it's a lot of fun.
It's amazing. I always say he's got a heart as big as his voice.
Yeah.
And no matter, when he steps away from the microphone, it doesn't turn off.
No.
He's the same guy every time we call a game on WXOU. We're lucky enough to sit a seat over from him. Always the biggest fist bump. Hey, guys, how we doing? It just melts my heart every time we get to do a game and sit next to him. He's the best.
It's genuine too. I mean, that's like you said, it doesn't matter where you are with him. He's been a family friend, and my parents know him, and he and my dad have gone back and forth and have had a great relationship for years and years, and they laugh and joke about things, and yeah, he's a lot of fun, and they're really good people. So it's this is a special place, and that's when you ask why I came back here. I mean, Oakland is a special place, and we're very thankful. Our family's very thankful to be here, and we're looking forward to being a part of Oakland basketball for a long time.
And it's going to be a fun ride as well. One last thing, for those fans that are listening here, watching here on the GioMo Show, getting ready for this next men's basketball season, tell the people what they can look forward to seeing and get them going to get them to come to the arena for this season.
I think you're going to see a team that's going to be built on defense again like we were last year. We're going to turn people over. We're going to frustrate people with that zone, and then we're going to fly that thing up and down the floor. And once we get going, this team gets clicking, we're going to make a lot of shots, and we're going to score a lot of points. And as always, we're going to be fun to watch. And I think that you'll get your money's worth, and you're going to be highly entertained. And this team, I think, will be right in the hunt for it come February. And so make sure you get out, come to the arena, be a part of it. There's not a bad seat, and like we just were talking about, the atmosphere is great in here. Come be a part of Oakland basketball.
Well, Jeff Smith, Associate Head Coach of Oakland Men's Basketball, thank you so much for coming on to the show here. I wish we could talk longer, but man, it was a great time having you here.
Appreciate you having me on. Anytime you want me, I'm always here for you.
All right, so for all of you listening to the GioMo Show and you want your fix of Oakland sports and beyond, then tune in, subscribe, rate, and review the podcast right here to never miss a thing right here on the GioMo Show. So from Giovanni Mosheri, from Jeff Smith, we'll see you next time right here on WXOU. That'll do it.